the son of Celine Dion, was destined to follow in her footsteps as a singer. Everyone expected him to sing. His admirers believed he would remain in the music industry. But René Angélil had other plans. It was at the age of 24 that he finally came clean about his covert activities. The family remained silent for years. His mother was concerned for him. His deceased father would have been astonished. But their anxieties were no longer important to René Angélil. Celine has been fiercely protective of his privacy, and he has been quite discreet. He explains why in what he stated this year. She was born in Charlemagne, a tiny village near Montreal, and her birthday is March 30th. She was the youngest and 14th kid. Her mother chuckled because their home was so crowded that they couldn't even fit one more spoon. With 16 people living in one house, there was always a lot of activity and noise. Everyone shared everything and was always moving, so there was no time for relaxation or a quiet spot. Celine had to feed about 20 individuals in the midst of a large crowd. Her family shared a neighborhood with many other families that was impoverished, noisy, and congested. Later, she claimed that because everyone else followed suit, they were unaware that they were struggling. Not even a crib was prepared for her. When she came home from the hospital, they placed her in a dresser drawer filled with blankets. It was not an odd decision. There was nothing else they could do. Neither extra cash nor space for baby stuff was available. During that time, the average Canadian household earned roughly $6,000. In contrast, the Dion family had a significantly smaller number of offspring. She had to make difficult choices and deal with boundaries as a child. As she grew, there was no more space for her. It became even more constricted. There were occasions when there were 3 of them on a mattress, and Celine shared a tiny bed with multiple sisters. People were sleeping on couches, the floors, and even the hallways since the house was that crowded. She later claimed that the girls slept like rats, very close to one another every night. For some years, things had not been this way. It continued throughout her adolescence. Her home felt like a village full of people, unlike most Canadian homes. Her father worked long hours for little pay as a butcher. Her mother stayed at home, cleaned the house, and created outfits out of leftover materials and old clothing. The family didn't have money. They lived on crumbs. There was music everywhere despite the difficulties. Her mom played the violin and her dad sang. They both loved music. She even got her name from a song. After a French song they adored, they gave her the name Celine. It sounded almost like a covert hope that their young daughter might one day sing that song. Even if there was music and love at home, the outer world wasn't pleasant. Celine was constantly teased in school. Her large teeth and slim build set her apart from the other children. They said she was a vampire. The teasing didn't happen once in a while. Every day it happened. According to Celine, the bullying hurt her deeply, and she will never forget it. She remembers how scared she was when she walked into class because she knew what was going to happen. Childhood photos from that time show a shy girl who looked like she wasn't sure of herself and was trying to blend in. Things didn't get better when she started singing in public as a teenager. The newspapers in her area made fun of her looks and called her Canine Dion because of her teeth. Even though she was only a child, older reporters laughed at her. By the time she was 18, she had had enough. She had taken a quiet step away, had braces, caps, and teeth work done, and then returned ready to be seen for what she could do, not how she looked. She had never been happy at school, telling him bluntly once, "I hated school." It was more than just bullying. She didn't think she belonged there. Her home was where she really learned, and her brothers and sisters taught her. The dinner table was her school. No books or chalkboards taught her how to sing, act, or survive. The Dion family didn't give up even when money was tight, and they actually formed a band. They performed in small venues across Quebec under the name Dion's Family. Celine started singing in her parents' piano bar at the age of 5. People didn't treat her like a curiosity, so she joined the act. By the time she was 12, she had written and recorded her first song. She sang in public for the first time at her brother Michel's wedding in 1973. It wasn't just for fun, it was a matter of survival. The shows brought in money, and they also gave Celine a stage, which was even better. Although she felt small at school, she felt safe in the family basement. She didn't hang out with friends after school. Instead, she would go straight home and begin making music with her brothers. Their basement became a safe haven for Celine, where she found her voice and used her pain to become stronger. She sang every note to fight back against everyone who made fun of her. In June 1980, a young girl and her family entered a nearby studio with just enough money saved to create a model. She wrote a few simple songs with the help of her mother and brothers. It wasn't fancy. Most children that age were still learning how to ride a bike, but this girl was thinking about music instead. That day, she sang into a studio microphone. While her family was present and without realizing it, it was the beginning of a journey that would eventually reach hundreds of millions of people. Her mother, Thérèse, didn't just believe her. She risked everything. She sent that demo to a man named René Angélil, who she chose because he was in charge of Jeanette Reynaud, the most famous singer in Quebec, and she looked up to her. The family only had enough money for one tape, though, and if it ended up in the wrong hands or was thrown away, everything would be over. They had 14 children, their dad was a butcher, and it wasn't just a guess, it was all they had. That tape, somehow, made it. René looked at it and he heard something new, not just a song. Everyone was shocked by what he did next. He claimed it was the best voice he had ever had. Some claim he cried, while others claim he just sat there in shock and silence. A 12-year-old girl who had never performed on stage before, he spent over $100,000 taking out a mortgage on his own home to enable her to attend school. His friends told him he was crazy, but he didn't care. In 1983, she was already a rising star in Quebec, and in 1988, she won Eurovision. She was just getting started, and their first encounter wasn't set up like a big interview. When the Dion family arrived, René didn't even have a real microphone. "Imagine you're singing to a huge crowd," he said, handing her a pencil, and she did not hesitate. She stood there and sang "Ce n'était qu'un rêve," as if her life depended on it. René was shocked by what he heard, and he later told her that she sang as if 10,000 people were in the room, even though there were only a few family members and a boss present, but that moment sealed her doom. Between the ages of 13 and 18, Celine released 9 records in French, and at the age of 15, she became the first Canadian artist to receive a gold record in France. When Celine Dion was just 18, she kept a secret from everyone. Her 44-year-old boss, René Angélil, had fallen deeply in love with her. The age difference alone would have been enough to get people talking, but there was more to it than that. She kept a picture of him under her pillow and looked at it every night while sharing a room with her mother. Her obsession made her feel sick to her stomach, and she thought about him during the day and couldn't sleep, even though she knew it was impossible. René had been split up twice before, and he was old enough to be her father, but she couldn't stop herself. The more it felt wrong, the stronger the feelings became. Her family didn't know until her mother did. Celine's biggest admirer has always been Thérèse Dion, who helped her land her first job and believed her voice was genuine. However, she was appalled to hear that her teenage daughter had fallen in love with a man who was nearly 30 years older than her. René was older too, having known him since she was 12. Thérèse believed it was reckless and even reckless, and she spoke to Celine, perhaps hoping the crush would end quickly. However, Celine refused to back down, telling her mother, "We live in a free country. I can love anyone I want." She wasn't merely protecting her feelings, she was fighting for her independence. The fact that Celine and René were dating was a secret for many years, and only close friends and family knew about it. They were cautious, knowing that other people would think poorly of them, but they were willing to wait because they loved each other. They hid right out in the open. She continued to work for him and learn from him. Behind the scenes, however, their bond continued to grow stronger. Celine did something shocking when she was at the height of her early fame. Her first legal date took place in private, with no one else knowing. Her life changed in a single night when she won the Eurovision Song Contest on April 30th, 1988, in front of over 600 million people. She was only 20 years old, and it was electrifying to watch. It didn't matter that she sang for Switzerland instead of Canada. When all the votes were counted, Swiss defeated UK by 1 point, 137 to 136. In late 1986, she got crowns on her teeth, changed her hair, and learned to speak English perfectly. She no longer wanted to be a kid star. She aimed to become a global celebrity. After that narrow victory, Celine quickly rose to fame throughout Europe, with Ne partez pas sans moi being the last French-language song to win. Celine's biggest step to date came in 1990 when she released her first English-language album. Unison, which sold over 1 million copies, sold 2 million copies in the United States, was certified platinum and won 7 platinum awards in Canada. The hit song, Where Does My Heart Beat Now, peaked at number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100, which was nearly unheard of for a French-speaking artist, but Celine made it seem easy. The album won Juno Awards for Album of the Year and Female Vocalist of the Year, and Celine was now not just a Canadian star, she was rapidly becoming a global pop sensation. Her first major American TV show that year was The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, where Leno looked directly into the camera after hearing her sing live and said she would have a great future. It was a significant moment, but it turned out to be just right. 2 years later, the Wall Street Journal, which typically writes about business and money, called her a once-in-a-generation voice. Even her team was shocked by this kind of praise from such a reputable source. It was no longer said that she was like pop stars. Instead, it was stories that placed her alongside them. After years of hard work, her strong, pure voice had become her calling card, and now critics were finally giving her the credit she deserved. Then came her 24th birthday night, March 30th, 1992, when Celine and Peabo Bryson performed Beauty and the Beast. The song had recently won 2 awards. A lot of famous people in Hollywood watched her sing it live, and it stopped the show. That same night, she released her second record in English. The buzz happened right away. She was back on The Tonight Show in just 24 hours. At that point, everyone agreed. Jay Leno's guess had come true. The whole country was shocked when Celine Dion got married live on national TV on December 17, 1994. A lot of people in Canada watched her walk down the aisle at the Montreal Notre Dame Basilica. Her dress was made of silk and had a 20-foot train. The tiara she wore was so heavy that it weighed 7 pounds. There were more than 500 people in the church, which had more than 10,000 fresh flowers all over it. Even more exciting was the fact that it was the first time that everyone knew about Celine and René Angélil's romance. His age was 26 years greater than hers, and they had not told anyone about their relationship until then. It wasn't easy after their wedding, though. Even though Celine's music business kept going up, she had a lot of heartache trying to have kids for years. Her fertility treatment started when she was in her early 30s and continued for nearly 10 years. In 1999, René was informed that he had throat cancer, which made matters worse. His sperm were frozen before treatment began, but doctors soon discovered that his sperm count was already low, making it nearly impossible to conceive naturally. They tried IVF at least 7 times, each time being physically and emotionally taxing, and they also experienced a loss. Although Celine had one of the most well-known sounds in the world, she didn't discuss these painful experiences with anyone. When she eventually gave birth, it felt like a silent miracle. In May 2000, she flew to New York for 2 surgeries at a prestigious fertility center, which were only 4 days apart. Her team advised her to take a break for at least 10 days so she could concentrate on becoming a mother. The world was happy. For her, and after years of failures and sadness, this moment felt just right. She stayed out of the spotlight for 3 years to focus on her new family. But the ending wasn't just happy. It showed what can happen when you have hope and wait. She continued to pursue her dreams despite the pressure from the media and her own aspirations. Then, on January 25, 2001, in Florida, she gave birth to a son named René Charles, who weighed 6 pounds 8 ounces and arrived 3 weeks early. However, the story didn't end there. She was already one of the biggest singing stars in the world long before all of this. She released Falling Into You in 1996, and after the record, everything changed. More than 32 million copies were sold worldwide, with about 12 million sold in the US and 2 more in the UK. She said she was very close to it and couldn't stand to let it go to waste. Another egg was also made and frozen at the same time, and it had been frozen for almost 9 years. In 2010, it helped her have twin boys. It won the Grammy for Album of the Year in 1997. Sales in France, Germany, Canada, and Australia exceeded 1 million copies. Songs like Because You Loved Me and It's All Coming Back to Me Now still sold. A lot of copies on their own, and after that, everyone couldn't get away from the song. My Heart Will Go On was her biggest hit to date when it came out in 1997 for the movie Titanic. By 1998, it had sold 18 million hard copies. It was number 1 in more than 20 places. It was number 1 on the Eurochart Hot 100 for 17 weeks in Europe. More than 4 came from Germany, France, and the UK combined. It had 6 million copies in print. That month, 117 million Americans heard it on the radio, a record at the time. It's high, still being streamed hundreds of millions of times annually, and it's still being discovered by entire new generations. She was the first woman to have 2 records that sold over 30 million copies each, with Falling Into You garnering 32 million views and Let's Talk About Love, released in 1997, selling 31 million copies. Other female artists haven't achieved that feat either. These hits didn't last long, though. In 2003, she changed the course of events in Las Vegas when Caesars Palace built her a $95 million stadium named the Coliseum, with 4,300 seats. There was no other love story like Celine Dion's with René Angélil, but they were going through a difficult time behind the fame, lights, and music for 17 long years. In April 1998, René was told he had throat cancer, and the doctor said it was a miracle that he recovered after surgery and the rest of the treatment, but the cancer returned. Another growth appeared in December 2013, but even though it was removed, the damage was already done. René was no longer able to eat, and a tube had to be used to feed him. René was still interested in her career, though, and he helped shape her Las Vegas shows and world trips, even when he was unable to speak. When his cancer returned, Celine dropped everything, canceling shows in Las Vegas and an Asian tour in August 2014. These were big decisions that cost a lot of money, but she never hesitated. She told him she would do everything in her power to help him recover. In October 2010, at the age of 42, she gave birth to twins, Nelson and Eddie, but getting there wasn't easy. She underwent 6 rounds of IVF. She lost a pregnancy once. The embryos that produced the twins weighed just over 5 pounds each. The first was named for Nelson Mandela, and the second for Celine's longtime manager, Eddie Marnay. It seemed impossible, but Celine and René remained together despite René's declining health. They spent her time in Las Vegas together. René passed away in January 2016 at the age of 73. Celine fed him herself in the final months. He was no longer her manager, but he remained the most important person in her career. She kept her word and remained by his side until the end. The 2024 documentary, I Am, Celine Dion revealed a side of her life that fans had never seen before. During a recording session, cameras captured her having a seizure in a very unsettling moment. The news of Celine's illness shocked everyone. She had stiff person syndrome, SPS, which is caused by sound, touch, or even feeling in some people. It can twist the body, hurt the spine, and make it impossible to walk. There is no way to get better. Benzodiazepines and shots of botulinum. Toxin are often used as part of treatment. She moaned in pain for nearly 8 minutes and was unable to move or speak. The doctors had to move quickly and gave her 2 doses of emergency nasal spray while they worked to keep her awake. Celine had been struggling for years with difficult-to-understand symptoms that weren't discovered until after the pandemic, which allowed her to take stock of her health. Up until then, she had kept her illness a secret from everyone, singing even when she was in pain or her voice wouldn't work, and she performed up to 70 shows in a single year. Behind the scenes, she was visiting doctors, trying out new treatments, and maintaining her good looks. It nearly broke her to pretend that everything was fine, but she didn't want to disappoint her friends, and it wasn't until August 2022 that doctors confirmed her condition. In December, she told her friends the truth, and it was finally no longer a burden to conceal it. Neil and Eddie are only 14 years old. They know how to lie to her on her side. They know how to set off alarms around the house. They know when to call for help. They do drills every night to help her get better, and they even check on her if it takes too long for her to get ready for bed. They treat it with love, even though it's not something a child should have to do. Celine can still feel René even though he's not there. She said in 2021 that she often feels his presence. She talks to him when things get difficult, and she feels his presence during the worst parts of her illness. He was her husband, her boss, and her best friend, and she has never forgotten that connection. The world is aware of Celine's strength. On May 22, 2008, President Nicolas Sarkozy presented her with the Legion of Award, France's highest civilian honor, at the Élysée Palace. At the time, she sold over 12 million copies of her album Deux, making her the most well-known French-language singer of all time. In 2023, Rolling Stone ranked her as the 10th best Canadian artist of all time, placing her in 3rd place, just behind Neil Young and Joni Mitchell. No other Canadian female pop act ever received it. Her influence has persisted through all the changes and trends in the industry. Her oldest son, René Angélil, is establishing himself. At the age of 24, he has achieved success in 2 very different fields, and in July 2025, he shocked the poker world by making it deep into the world series of poker main event. His dad, René, was also a very good poker player, and he proved that poker skills run in the family by making it to day 5 with 2 out of over 9,700 players and 8,000 chips. René Angélil is now playing poker, but he's doing it with cards in one hand and music in the other. He made about $70,000.